questions. This evening, I am interviewing Jen Solis, who is running as the Democratic candidate for House District 41. So, welcome, Jen. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you participating in these interviews and giving your constituents an ability to get to hear from you prior to this election.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, Lori, and I'd love to thank the league for sponsoring this format, and to all the voters that are tuning in to hear what I have to say.
Yeah, and we're hoping we in the past have had some really good luck with people watching the videos. They'll go on our YouTube channel. And so we found that that's an effective way to sort of get people out there for those who can't go to any kind of particular forum or things like that. So first, we're going to start off just with an introduction so you can introduce yourself to the audience. Just include in that how long you've lived in Cheyenne or Laramie County. How's your personal professional background and experience prepared you for this position in the legislature? What elected or appointed offices have you held? Describe your civic or volunteer involvement, and then what motivated you to run for this position?
Yeah, I'd love to. So, Wyoming's been home for me since 1996. I moved here from Bangor, Maine when I was 18 years old. I sold everything I owned and bought myself a Greyhound bus ticket and headed west, not knowing what to expect, but found a place where I just absolutely loved. Cheyenne's been home for 10 of those years. We moved here with our three young children back in 2014. And since that time, my career has been mostly focused on nonprofits. I've been the development director for Habitat for Humanity of Laramie County. And I also own my own consulting business where I do grant writing and bookkeeping for small businesses and nonprofits. My civic engagement, I love civic engagement. I serve on the board of the Wyoming Civic Engagement Network, which is a statewide organization that is tasked with improving voter turnout across the state. And I also serve on the Wyoming Independent Citizens Coalition, a Laramie County group that does a lot of work in civic engagement. For example, last spring, we worked with all three high schools to do a voter registration education drive where we helped about 150 students who would be 18 before the primaries or the general get the information that they needed to get registered. So I love work like that. I'm very involved in the community. I've never served in public office. I have served in capacities like on our my children's school's PTO, where I've been the treasurer, and I serve on the district-wide parent advisory council and other various committees as needed. And I just really enjoy Cheyenne and the Laramie County community and being involved however I can.
Right, thank you. That's great about the registration events. I know that the league really tries to participate in those as well. Okay, now we'll move into our questions. What specific policies or reforms do you think Wyoming could effectively implement to reduce healthcare costs for the uninsured and the underinsured in our state?
Well, first and foremost, we need to expand Medicaid. This has been a debate that Wyoming has been engaged in for far too long. The vast majority of Wyomingites want Medicaid to be expanded statewide. Our tax dollars, our federal tax dollars, already pay for expansion. So basically, we're just wasting money when we pay our federal taxes annually. We're not getting that return on our investment. We've heard from dozens and dozens of employers who talk about healthcare and the lack of healthcare that their employees experience being the number one barrier to employee retention and recruitment. If an employee can't afford healthcare, they're going to be absent from work. And when employees are absent from work, our local businesses can't operate the way that they're supposed to, and they certainly can't grow. So that's the number one thing. Secondly, we need to stop with the culture war nonsense of attacking doctors for performing standard medical care, particularly for women. We're driving our doctors out of state with all of these sort of bans on medical procedures. And we're having a hard time recruiting doctors to Wyoming, creating these vast healthcare deserts that really harms women and puts their lives in jeopardy. So we really need to focus on expanding coverage to our working families, and we need to stop with the nonsense that's driving our doctors to practice their crafts elsewhere.
Thank you. Turning to education, what accountability and performance measurement standards should be required for all schools, whether they be public, private, or charter in Wyoming?
Well, first of all, I think public funds should go to public schools. I don't think we should be funding religious education. If somebody wishes to send their child to a religious school, I fully support their right to do so, but I don't think that that should be done on with public funds. Secondly, everyone that's listening to this probably just experienced parent-teacher conferences this past week, and I think that what I learned from listening to my children's teachers was how they are trying to teach standards in a way that is hard for the kids to learn, and they are having to cover a lot of information in a very short number of days. For example, one of my children's teachers mentioned teaching long division. They had 4 days to teach a classroom of fifth graders how to do long division, and that's all the time that's allotted for it. And it was a challenge because the new curriculum sort of teaches it in a different way, which may work for some kids, and that's great. But they need that flexibility to make sure that the kids can understand the material and accommodate different learning styles. I know that my kiddo came home one day last week and said, "I finally understand long division." And it turned out that what had happened was the teacher had sort of diverted from the curriculum and sort of said, "Well, this isn't working. Let's try this." And a different way worked for her. And now she's a master at long division. So that's the magic of educators. I think if we can get out of their way and let them do their job, that's what we need.
Great, thank you. What infrastructure investments do you think are necessary to support the state and, in particular, House District 41's long-term economic growth?
Well, I'll tell you, knocking doors in House District 41, particularly in the past couple of weeks, all I'm hearing about is the roads. There are a lot of road projects happening in House District 41 in some places, and then there's some places where there is no expectation that their roads will ever be fixed. We were walking in a neighborhood yesterday where the roads were just a mess. And the residents there were telling me that no one has touched their roads in over 25 years. And that was frustrating to them. So I think we need to, pay attention to our roads. I mean, if your car can't drive to your house and get you from point A to point B without, destroying your car, it doesn't work for the residents of House District 41. So I'd love to see some, better roads, especially in some of the parts of the district that have been ignored for a while. And then the parts that are getting some attention, the residents all seem very pleased that there's construction happening there, but they're very frustrated with the length of time it's taking and the sort of diversions and detours that are coming through the residential neighborhoods. It sounds like there's a lot of traffic that's going very fast through some very kid heavy areas. So there's a lot of concern about that kind of thing. So just logistics of infrastructure projects, I think, is something we can look at.
Sounds good. This is obviously comes up a lot with the state of political discussion nowadays, unfortunately. But how would you engage in constructive dialogue with those who have opposing views?
So this is actually something that I really, really love. Occasionally I get a text message or a phone call from someone who doesn't want to vote for me. It's happened a little bit in the past week. I've had about 2 or 3 calls, and I don't mind it. I have no problem talking to folks that disagree with me. And usually the phone call ends with them telling me to have a wonderful day, and that even though they might not be voting for me, they have learned that I'm not a terrible person. I think our political rhetoric has gotten so hyper, so intense. I hear every day when I'm knocking on doors, "Oh, I'm so afraid to tell anyone I'm a Democrat." But we're knocking on every single door in the district. If there's a registered voter at a house, we are knocking on that door. If they have a Trump sign in their yard, we're knocking on that door. And we're having great conversations. That doesn't mean that they're going to vote for me. That doesn't mean they agree with everything I have to say. But I think as Americans, we've been in our little camps for so long that maybe we are tired of it and maybe we're ready to talk to each other again. And I'm seeing signs of that. And I'm hopeful that that sort of those conversations can continue and we can get back to a more productive sort of system of government where even when we disagree, we can still figure out solutions to the issues we face.
Yes, that's important, I think, that
I hope for it every day.
we all have to participate in this government of the people, by the people, and for the people.
Amen.
All right, so let's go to the closing here. Please address, if you can, if elected, what do you hope to achieve? What is the greatest strength you believe you would bring to this position? And ultimately, why should voters choose you over your opponent for House District 41?
So first and foremost, I love Wyoming. I moved here almost 30 years ago, and when I moved here, it changed me. I found a place where my pursuit of happiness was free, and it was exactly I could live my life and build a life that was of my choosing. And even though I'm a Democrat, it's important to know that, and I realize that that is because we have limited government, we have local control, and I'm very very proud to be a Wyomingite. I am, like a lot of folks, I'm very, very concerned about people who've been moving to Wyoming, trying to change it. And I think that that is what my opponent, I think that's where he stands. I think he has come to Wyoming, and he has said, this place should be more like I think, which is not how Wyoming has ever been. Wyoming is big and free enough for all of our pursuits of happiness. It always has been. It's not perfect, never has been perfect. But for those willing to work hard and to help out and to be a part of the communities where they live, Wyoming has always been a rewarding place to live. And I think folks like my opponent want to change that. They want the state to dictate what the pursuit of happiness can look like. They want the state to dictate what kind of medical choices we can make, what kind of medical care we can receive, even what books we can read. That's not the Wyoming way. And I will stand for the Wyoming way. When I got here at the age of 18, I have been blessed beyond measure to have been influenced by so many great Wyomingites, Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Independents, people who could care less about politics. The values that we all share are that we want people who work hard and treat people fairly. And that's what I'll bring to the Wyoming legislature.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jen. That was a great response. And thank you for participating in this interview for the League of Women Voters. It's part of our mission to make sure that people are able to make educated and informed decisions about who they want to vote for. So thank you for helping us to fulfill that and participate in these interviews.
Thanks so much.
And with that, I will say good night.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.